Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu to get a 50% cashback bonus. Make sure you use the promo code Truth100. I don't know why it's 100. I don't know. They didn't change our code after they changed it from 100% to 50%. But use Truth100 at BetNow.eu. I am your co-host for the NFL Show on a Thursday, which means we got Thursday Night Football to talk about with... From the FF Face-Off, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing awesome, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. So let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit injury updates, a little football news, a little trade talk. Jalen Ramsey, of course, has already been traded. And now the Dolphins are engaged in talks, from what I hear, to trade Kenyon Drake.
This is actually the first I am hearing about this. I knew Drake was going to be moved. I didn't know it was going to be this soon. So fill me in. What's going on?
Well, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported that the Dolphins had trade conversations with teams centered around running back Kenyon Drake, and the team has indicated they would trade him if the right offer presented itself, per sources informed of the situation. I know that Drake is playing out the final year of his rookie contract, and there have been no talks about an extension so far. So rumors about Drake, I think from what I remember, swirled a little earlier this season. We haven't heard anything during the season. But I think it's questionable what Drake could bring back for the Dolphins in a trade.
I actually like Kenyon Drake. I think he's a very talented player. I just think he's been misused, especially when Adam Gase was there, because he's an excellent pass catcher. But he can also run the ball, and that's what he doesn't get enough. He doesn't get enough of those in between the tackle carries, and I think he's very much capable of being productive that way. And now, without Adam Gase, you are on a tanking team that you're playing from behind, a negative game script. So you're really not seeing the upside and the ceiling of Kenyon Drake yet.
Yeah, Miami started Mark Walton over Drake. And I think the biggest question is, with the Dolphins interested in stockpiling picks, who's going to buy a part-time running back who will be a free agent in March, though? So I don't think we could get more than a potential late-round pick anyways here.
It all depends on the situation. What if, who's a contender with a running back? What if a Christian McCaffrey went down? All of a sudden, the Panthers, who are competitive, look at Kenyon Drake and say, he's going to probably be a rental. We don't need him, but he can do a lot of the same things that Christian McCaffrey does. He's not elite like Christian McCaffrey, but we can, he's a plug-and-play guy that will keep us in the hunt. And at what we saw last year at the trade deadline, was Golden Tate worth a fourth-round pick by the Eagles? Absolutely not, and he was a 5-game rental. Demaryius Thomas was also moved for a decent pick.
Yeah, so I think Kenyon Drake is probably short for the Miami Dolphins one way or the other. Drew Brees has continued to make progress. He's went from throwing Nerf footballs to the real-size pigskin. And the question is, I think before they were wanting him to return right after the Week 9 bye, but going 4-0 without him, does that make them take a little bit more time to make sure he's completely ready to go?
I know I would.
I would too, because a healthy Drew Brees at 100%, the New Orleans Saints are a Super Bowl contender. I mean, heck, right now, without him, they're a Super Bowl contender.
You think so? You trust Teddy Bridgewater in December?
It really has nothing to do with trusting Teddy Bridgewater, because what you've got is, do you trust Kirk Cousins? Do you trust Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, right now, those are the two teams probably playing better than just about anybody. The Green Bay Packers have injury issues.
But they also have,
Aaron Rodgers.
next to Tom Brady, a top quarterback in the league.
Yeah. So
possibly the second most, and we had this conversation about Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, I think Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, number 2, Aaron Rodgers 3.
I mean, we talked. Are you putting Aaron Rodgers in front of Patrick Mahomes right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Maybe not in front of Deshaun.
How about
but
this? I've always kind of thought Russell Wilson was the best quarterback in the NFL. But really, until you get 5, 6, 7 years in, it's really hard to tell what you've got. And with Patrick Mahomes, he looks like the real deal, but he's still only played a little over a year. So I'll wait and see on just about anybody. And I think it's hard to call a guy number one if he's only played a year, year and a half. And I think it's real hard to put that guy above an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady after just a year and a half. And I still like Deshaun Watson more than him.
Yeah, we agree on Deshaun.
All right, next up, Patrick Peterson returns. You think there's any chance of a trade with Patrick Peterson here?
They toyed with the idea last year. I know that rumor floated around, but I don't know. What can you get right now for a Patrick Peterson?
Well, I would think you could probably get something for him, especially, I think Philadelphia is a perfect landing spot for him, especially to stop those dang Cowboys. But I mean, right now they're 2-3-1. They're not out of this. It's not like they're the Cincinnati Bengals or the Miami Dolphins. And now I don't think that they have much of a shot here to make the playoffs.
They're out of it because they play in the hardest division in the NFL.
Yeah, but still, it's not like they're 0-5 and dead in the water. The other thing I would say about it is this: they're 2-3-1, which with Kyler Murray, you're missing maybe your best wide receiver right now. You got David Johnson. This is a team that has pieces. I don't think this is a team where you have to do a complete rebuild.
No, which is why I probably wouldn't trade Patrick Peterson.
Me too. That's where I was going with it. I think there is more hope there than there is in a lot of cities like Miami and Cincinnati and Washington. So I don't think he's going anywhere. The Raiders extended Darren Waller, their star tight end, through 2023. I think this is a good move, Anthony. He's a quality tight end.
Yeah, he's played extremely well, and it's really been a small sample size, but he's been dominant. I think that's the difference. It hasn't been, on one game off the next game. He's been dominant, and you can make the case that he might be the wide receiver one at the time. He's almost to the Raiders what a poor man's Travis Kelce when Tyreek Hill's off the field.
Yeah. Because Darren Waller can make a difference, and he's like having a big play wide receiver at tight end, which is what the Patriots always did with Gronkowski, and what the 49ers have done with George Kittle.
And, I love Waller's story because if you watched Hard Knocks, you knew he was he's a recovering drug addict who made good.
Yeah, and now he's making $9 billion a year. That ain't too bad. $9 million a year.
No.
Any other news you want to talk to before we get to tonight's Kansas City Chiefs game with the Denver Broncos?
Todd Gurley. Sean McVay said that Gurley is on a good pace to hopefully play this week.
Sean McVay's hoping. All right, tonight, all of a sudden, the Kansas City Chiefs are skidding, and all of a sudden, the Denver Broncos are on a hot streak, riding high. And though still sitting strong in first place, the Chiefs 4-2 bring a 2-game losing streak in their division tilt against the Broncos, who are now 2-4. The Broncos have won 2 straight. They're playing at Empower Field at Mile High. I just like to call it Mile High Stadium. This is Vic Fangio's first matchup as a head coach against Andy Reid. And I think that's the interesting thing here. You've got what's supposed to be a defensive guru against an offensive guru. And I think this shapes up to be a tight game.
Yeah, and I think for the Denver Broncos to have a chance, and I do believe they have a good chance, this is going to have to be a low-scoring game. And if you look back to the 3 games that Pat Mahomes has played, you have to remember, Patrick Mahomes, his first career start, when Alex Smith was on this team, the Chiefs had everything locked up. December 31st, 2017, he starts in Denver and wins 27-24. Last season, October 1st, this is with Kareem Hunt, 27-23 in Denver, 4-point game, and then game a couple weeks later in Arrowhead, 30-23. So all of these victories for Mahomes has been by fewer than 7 points. But I think that the trend is that Denver was able to contain or at least keep up with Patrick Mahomes. And now you have Vic Fangio, whose defense looks like is starting to get it and play up to his system. The Denver Broncos can run the ball, and we know the Chiefs can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They don't have a defense. Denver, they can contain Chiefs running backs because the Chiefs not only don't try to commit to the run, but I don't think Denver's rush defense is as bad as it seems. They've given up a lot of rushing scores to running backs, but not so much yards. So if you can keep Pat Mahomes off the field and try to keep the plays in front of you and don't give up those big plays to Tyreek Hill, Denver wins this game because guess what? Joe Flacco isn't going to lose this game for you.
No, and the thing is, if it's close
and the
at the
Chiefs
end,
are missing
Joe Flacco
5
can
starters.
win it for you.
Kansas City's missing 5 starters. Chris Jones, their top pass rusher. Fuller, I believe, who's a cornerback. Eric Fisher and another offensive lineman, and Sammy Watkins. You have 5 key players for Kansas City out, and Pat Mahomes is playing on a bum wheel.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
this is the recipe for
bum
Denver.
wheel is something I think people are overlooking because if you've noticed the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been very few explosive plays. He didn't throw a touchdown, I don't think, against Detroit. He didn't throw one last week. And I think with the bum ankle, it keeps him in the pocket. And the thing about keeping him in the pocket is the Chiefs' offensive line's not very good. The Broncos can get after the quarterback, and if they can keep him in the pocket, he's still going to make plays because I'm by no means saying he can't be a pocket passer. But what I am saying is his ability to scramble is a lot of times what breaks open these big plays, and I think that that's going to be limited here, especially on short rests. You know, they played Sunday. Now they're playing Thursday. There's not much time for that ankle to rest.
No, so this is a big game, a very big game, because if Denver wins, it'll be their 3rd win in a row. It'll be Kansas City's 3rd loss in a row. Then we have to start to think: are the Chiefs, are they falling apart? Do they make a move for Kenyon Drake, who I believe is an upgrade over a 30-year-old LaShawn McCoy?
Yeah.
And maybe Damian Williams, and I like Damian Williams.
Well, how about
but
this?
He's not
We don't know if
he's
it's
a
an
pass
upgrade.
catching specialist.
And remember this, even with a running back, it doesn't mean Andy Reid's going to use him because we don't know if LaShawn McCoy's old or not because they don't use him. I mean, and Andy Reid's MO is to not run the ball enough.
But hear me out on LaShawn McCoy. Buffalo, they made a lot of great moves this offseason. We believe that they would be a contender, which means they believed it. So if they were going to be a contender, why bring in a 30-something-year-old Frank Gore and move on from McCoy if the 34-year-old wasn't out playing McCoy?
Well, I agree with you. But my point is I don't know if it matters who they got running the ball because when stuff gets close, Andy Reid throws the ball and he goes away from the run. Kareem Hunt, he ran last year. I don't think he ran him as much as he should have. And when we talk about the running game, I think Philip Lindsay is huge tonight. And he started the season off slow his first 3 or 4 games. He was coming back from a wrist injury. But the last 2 games, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns on 30 carries. And his last 2 games against the Kansas City Chiefs, he's averaged 15 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown in each one of those 2 games. I think it takes Philip Lindsay running for 120 yards or more tonight, but I think he can.
But does it have to be all Philip Lindsay? Because Royce Freeman has been just as productive as Philip Lindsay, especially
well, how about
in the
this?
passing game.
If they combine for 150 yards or more, I think they've got a good chance to win the game, and I think they can because if they're combining for that, that means that they're keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field probably.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
But,
go ahead.
Now, Denver's secondary is playing outstanding. Can they contain Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce?
Well, I
don't think you can take out both. Do you try to take out Kelce's impact, or do you just try to keep Tyreek Hill in front of you and not let him beat you for 2 80-yard touchdowns? What is the best route?
I think the key to beating a team like the Kansas City Chiefs is to keep everything in front of you and try to eliminate explosive plays. If we look at it, the last 2 weeks, that's what teams have done. That's what the Colts did. It's what the Lions did. It's what was done to them this last weekend. And if you make a team like Kansas City with a coach like Andy Reid take 10, 12, 15 plays to score, invariably they're going to get antsy and they're going to take deep shots when they shouldn't, which is going to cause turnovers. And we saw Mahomes throw his first interception last week. And I think that if you can keep this team, because it's a lot easier to slow a game down than it is to speed a game up. So I think the whole key is tonight, if the Broncos can hold this game to 0-0 through over half of the first quarter, or even jump into the lead, and then control the tempo with their offense and their defense. They can control the tempo with the defense by trying to contain him in the pocket, get a push up the middle, let your defenders defend. I mean, if they don't have to blitz him and they can get pressure with their front three, front four, especially if Von Miller could have a breakout game, if they could get pressure and contain him with the front three or four, take a linebacker, spy him to make sure he stays in even though he's got the bad ankle, cover 3 or 4 receivers with 6 guys in different cover 2, cover 4, play quarters, keep everybody in front of them. I think that's the way to beat this team, and I think we've seen that over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is going to be a really exciting game. I think you know where I'm going here. I'm going to go with the upset of the week, and I think Denver Broncos win this.
Yeah, I think they win it too. If they don't, I think they'll cover. I think 3.5 points right there will tell you that Vegas doesn't have a lot of confidence in them either, because if you'd have played this game 3 weeks ago, playing in Denver, they'd have been favored by double digits.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there is any doubt about that, which is why Anthony said absolutely. Anthony, anything else we want to discuss before we wrap it up?
I think we hit on everything.
Yeah, we hit on everything in 20 minutes. Any fantasy sleepers for this week? Any fantasy sleepers for tonight?
I mean, you can say Royce Freeman's a fantasy sleeper because Philip Lindsay does get a lot of the attention in the fantasy football circle, and Royce Freeman sits on a lot of people's benches with injuries and bye weeks. I think you can put Royce Freeman in the flex spot, and he'll get you a nice double-digit PPR point floor in tonight's game.
All right, how about this? I mean, we've got what I think are 5 really dominant defenses in the NFL right now. The Bears, the 49ers, the Vikings, the Patriots, the Bills. Which one do you think's the best?
I think it's close between New England and Buffalo. I would give the edge to New England right now, but I don't think Buffalo's too far behind them. In fact, if you think back to that New England and Buffalo game, if it wasn't for a New England defensive touchdown, Brady only got 1 touchdown, if that, in that game. He could not move the ball against Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to say New England right now just because they're first in points allowed, first in yards allowed, second against the pass, third against the run. If I had to throw an outlier up here, I think the 49ers might have the best defense. You got a team that's second in points allowed, second in yards allowed, first against the pass, 6th against the rush. So, I mean, last year I think they only had 2 picks the whole year. D Ford has been a huge addition. Nick Bosa. I mean, they can get after the passer. Inside, you get DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. All 4 of those guys have 2.5, 3 sacks or more. And I think the biggest addition to this was Quan Alexander. I mean, because I think Quan Alexander is an absolute stud.
Yeah, and Quan Alexander, he had flashed in Tampa Bay, but injuries have always derailed him. And that was my issue with the signing initially this offseason. I said if Quan Alexander and D Ford and all of these pieces they added, if they can stay healthy, because that's the biggest knock on these players, and they can gel quickly, this defense, especially that front 7, because they have a lot of first-round picks. This was going to be one of the nastiest ones in the NFL, and right now they're living up to par.
Yeah, and the other thing is this. If you look how they completely shut down Cleveland and the Rams, not that they're great teams, but there's a lot of star power on the offenses there. They held those 2 teams to combine 20 points. And when I look at it, I just think there's better personnel on the 49ers than there are any of the other teams. I mean, complete-wise. if you notice, we're not talking about the Dallas Cowboys, who early in the season you said may have the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah, no, not right now.
Okay. Or not for the rest of the season either. All right, Anthony, you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow my show at the FF Face Off. You can find us on all of the top social media platforms, all of the top podcast platforms. And we'll be going live today right around 4 o'clock on YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch, covering the early games on the Week 7 slate.
All right, guys. And see, this is the advantage to being a Bengals fan, Anthony. You can never give me crap about my team because I picked my team to go 2-14, and I think I might have overrated them. So that just tells you next year, even if you think they're really good, just pick up to go 2-14. I'll leave you alone. But when you make comments like they're not going to win or not going to lose another game the rest of this decade, then I'm going to attack you all season long every time they lose. You're like Skip Bayless on this show.
They might not lose again after they beat Philly on Sunday.
Yeah, they might not, but they might. All right, so I think whoever wins between Dallas and Philly will probably win the division at 8-8 or 9-7.
That's fair. I think the winner of this game tonight definitely rolls to the division. This is going to be a big momentum game.
I don't think necessarily that happens.
Not tonight. A Sunday night.
Yeah, I don't think the winner necessarily wins the division because you got to go back to Philly. I think it maybe kills Dallas's chances if they lose the game. And the reason I say that, not Philly, is because Philly still gets to play Dallas in Dallas. And, if they play even up the rest of the way, they're a game back when they do that.
I mean,
so
they're in Dallas on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But even if they win, they're up a game, but they still got to go back to Philly. So you can even that up. And it's a lot easier to even it up that way than if you're Dallas, you lose at home, and then you've lost, 4 games straight, and you've still got to go to Philadelphia.
Dak is 4-2 against the Eagles, and I don't even know if he's ever lost to Wentz, maybe one.
Yeah, but you know what? In that same time they were 4-2, the Eagles won a Super Bowl.
That's okay.
Okay. I'm just telling you, it doesn't really matter. Past doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is what happens in the next game. That's what I keep telling myself every time the Bengals play the Steelers. But, all right, we're going to wrap the show up. Tomorrow, me and Anthony will be back at noon to recap tonight's Broncos-Chiefs game, either to brag about how we were so right or to act like we never really meant to pick the Broncos. And we will also look at every game for next week, pick each one of the games one by one, and go from there. All right, guys. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, like 300 different platforms. So anywhere you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.